Sad news to report here. The world mourning the loss of martial arts legend Chuck Norris after he was hospitalized for a medical emergency.
On March 19, 2026, the world was stunned by the news that Chuck Norris had passed away. The announcement of his sudden death at the age of 86 sent a wave of disbelief through fans and colleagues, as it seemed impossible that the man who embodied indestructible strength could be gone. Just 9 days earlier, on his birthday, Norris had shared a vibrant video of himself sparring energetically under the Hawaiian sun, joking that he didn't get older, he simply leveled up. But behind the myth was a man forged by relentless tragedy. The real story of Chuck Norris is not one of invincibility, but of improbable resilience. Carlos Ray Norris was born on March 10, 1940, in the small, dusty town of Ryan, Oklahoma. His entry into the world was not marked by promise, but by the harsh realities of rural poverty. His family, of Irish and Cherokee descent, struggled constantly. The greatest shadow over his youth was cast by his father, Ray D. Norris, a World War II veteran who worked intermittently as a mechanic and driver, but was consumed by severe alcoholism. The elder Norris would disappear on drinking binges for months at a time, leaving the family emotionally and financially destitute. This instability culminated in a devastating event when his father, driving while intoxicated, caused a fatal car accident, a tragedy that deepened the family's shame. This environment shaped a young Carlos who was the antithesis of his future public persona. He was non-athletic, painfully shy, and scholastically mediocre. The constant embarrassment over his father's behavior and the family's precarious situation caused him to develop a debilitating introversion that followed him throughout his childhood. He was a frequent target for bullies at school, further reinforcing his feelings of inadequacy. The breaking point finally came when Carlos was 16. His parents' marriage ended in divorce, a necessary but painful step that fractured the family permanently. Following the separation, he moved with his mother and brothers, first to Prairie Village, Kansas, and then to Torrance, California. In search of a stable life far from the painful memories of Oklahoma, it was in the Air Force, after high school, that he discovered the discipline of martial arts, a discovery that would finally give him a sense of identity and confidence. But just as he was building a new life for himself, the greatest tragedy of all struck. In June 1970, his younger brother, Wieland Clyde Norris, was killed in action during the Vietnam War, serving as a private in the 101st Airborne Division. Wieland was leading his squad on patrol in Thua Thien Hue Province when they walked into a well-laid ambush. Wieland was killed by enemy small arms fire. His death, just before his 27th birthday, was a devastating blow from which Chuck would never fully recover. The loss of his beloved younger brother became a defining sorrow of his life, instilling in him a profound, lifelong respect for the military and a quiet grief that he would carry forever. He would later dedicate his most successful film, Missing in Action, to his brother's memory, a tribute to the family hero who never came home. In 1958, at the young age of 18, Chuck Norris married his high school sweetheart, Diane Holchek. The couple had been together since he was 16, and their marriage seemed to represent a chance to build the stable family life he never had. They soon welcomed 2 sons, Mike, born in 1962, and Eric, born in 1965. On the surface, they were a growing family. But beneath it, fractures were beginning to form. The marriage would last for 3 decades, but it was marred by a secret that would remain buried for over a quarter of a century. In 1962, while stationed in California with the Air Force, Norris engaged in an extramarital affair with a woman named Johanna. From this brief relationship, a daughter named Dina was born in 1964. Norris, however, was unaware of her existence. Johanna, knowing he was married, chose to raise their daughter alone, never interfering with his established family. For 26 years, Norris lived his life, built his career, and raised his sons with no knowledge of his firstborn child. The infidelity that produced his daughter was also a symptom of the deeper issues that eventually led to the end of his marriage to Diane. The couple officially separated in 1988 and finalized their divorce a year later. After 30 years together, Norris would later admit that the primary cause of the split was his own unfaithfulness. The divorce was an emotional blow that he described in his autobiography as a shock to my system. It marked the end of a chapter that had begun in his teenage years and left him adrift as he entered middle age. The biggest shock, however, was yet to come. In 1991, a 26-year-old woman named Dina reached out to him with a letter, revealing that she was the daughter he never knew he had. After an initial period of hesitation, Norris agreed to meet her. He later recounted that the moment he saw her, he knew she was his. "I didn't need DNA or blood tests," he recalled, explaining that he simply wrapped his arms around her as they both cried. From that point forward, he welcomed Dina into his life, and the two forged a strong and loving father-daughter relationship. Despite the painful end of their marriage, Chuck and Diane Holchek managed to maintain a close and supportive friendship throughout the rest of their lives. This bond endured through his second marriage and her subsequent health struggles. In December 2025, Diane passed away after a long battle with dementia. Norris publicly paid tribute to her, remembering her as a kind and devoted mother to their sons. A final testament to the long and complex history they shared, 9 years after his divorce. In 1998, Chuck Norris found love again. He married Gina O'Kelly, a former model 23 years his junior. The marriage gave him a new lease on life. In 2001, at the age of 61, he became a father again to a set of twins, a son named Dakota Allen and a daughter named Danilee Kelly. He often joked about this late-in-life fatherhood, calling himself an overachiever. This new family became the center of his world, a source of joy and stability. However, this happiness would soon be tested by a devastating health crisis that would require all of his famous strength and resolve. In 2013, Gina began experiencing a series of terrifying and debilitating symptoms. She suffered from intense, burning pain that spread throughout her body, along with cognitive difficulties, kidney problems, and episodes of extreme weakness. Her health declined rapidly, leading to numerous emergency room visits as doctors struggled to diagnose the cause. The crisis began shortly after she underwent a series of MRI scans to monitor her rheumatoid arthritis. The family came to believe her condition was gadolinium poisoning, a reaction to the heavy metal contrast agent used during the scans. This marked the beginning of a new and desperate battle for the Norris family. Chuck put his acting career on hold, stepping away from Hollywood to become Gina's full-time caregiver and advocate. He devoted himself entirely to her health, researching treatments and fighting for a proper diagnosis. The financial cost of her care was immense, with the family spending over $2 million on treatments and therapies in an attempt to remove the metal from her system and manage her chronic pain. Their personal struggle soon became a public one. In 2017, Chuck and Gina filed a lawsuit against 11 medical and pharmaceutical companies, seeking more than $10 million in damages. They alleged that the manufacturers of the gadolinium-based contrast agents failed to adequately warn patients about the potential risks of the chemical being retained in the body. Norris described this fight for his wife's health as the most important issue of his life, a battle far more critical than any he had faced on screen. Though the legal fight was long and arduous, his unwavering dedication to Gina was absolute. The period became the greatest trial of their lives, testing them physically, emotionally, and financially. but their family remained their steadfast anchor through the storm. Chuck Norris's journey to Hollywood stardom was as unconventional as his life. He had never performed in a school play and was initially plagued by the same shyness that had defined his youth. His career began not on a stage, but on a mat. After discovering martial arts in the Air Force, he opened a chain of karate schools in California upon his return. His list of celebrity students was impressive and included Priscilla Presley, Bob Barker, and Donnie and Marie Osmond. His most pivotal student, however, was the king of cool, Steve McQueen. It was McQueen who saw Norris's potential and persistently encouraged him to take acting seriously. Despite Norris's heavy self-doubt and the harsh criticism he received for his early acting attempts, adopting a less is more philosophy, Norris learned to let his formidable physical presence speak for him. The true turning point in his career came through a friendship forged in mutual respect for the martial arts. In the late 1960s, Norris met the legendary Bruce Lee at karate tournaments. They quickly became close friends and training partners, with Lee's innovative and open-minded approach to combat heavily influencing Norris. In 1972, Lee made Norris an offer that would change his life. He asked him to play the villain, Colt, in his directorial debut, The Way of the Dragon, released in the US as Return of the Dragon. This led to the film's iconic climax, a legendary duel between Norris and Lee in the ancient Colosseum in Rome. The roughly 10-minute fight scene, filmed with a small guerrilla-style crew, was revolutionary for its realism and length, and it remains one of the most celebrated fight sequences in cinema history. The role was a breakthrough, instantly elevating Norris from a karate champion to a recognizable Hollywood figure. This triumph was followed by a deep and personal tragedy. In 1973, just as his star was rising, Bruce Lee died suddenly and mysteriously at the age of 32 from a cerebral edema. The loss of his friend and mentor was a profound blow to Norris. At Lee's funeral, he served as one of the pallbearers, alongside Steve McQueen, a quiet testament to the deep bond they shared. In the years that followed, Norris carved out his niche as a reliable action hero. He became the leading star for the Cannon Group, a studio known for its B-movie action films in the 1980s. He starred in successful films like Invasion USA and the Delta Force series. His fame reached its zenith with the long-running television series Walker, Texas Ranger, which aired from 1993 to 2001 and earned him an Emmy nomination. His career saw a resurgence with a memorable appearance in The Expendables 2, 2012, where he starred alongside fellow action legends Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, his career was not without its struggles. The Cannon Group, which had been his cinematic home, faced severe financial difficulties and eventually went bankrupt in 1994. Later, he engaged in a protracted financial dispute with CBS over profits from Walker, Texas Ranger, alleging he was owed more than $30 million. The lawsuit was eventually settled. After the 2000s, his career slowed as he chose to focus more on his family and his philanthropic work, most notably the Kickstart Kids Foundation, which uses martial arts to teach character and resilience to at-risk children. The final years of Chuck Norris's life were marked by profound personal loss, a quiet closing of chapters that had defined his long journey. In December 2024, he mourned the passing of his mother, Wilma Norris Knight, who died at the remarkable age of 103. For decades, Wilma had been his greatest spiritual inspiration, a bedrock of faith and kindness who had guided him through his darkest moments. Just 1 year later, in December 2025, another pillar of his past fell when his first wife, Diane Holchek, passed away after a long struggle with dementia. Though their marriage had ended decades earlier, their shared history and children had kept them bound in a lasting friendship. These back-to-back losses left him as one of the last remaining anchors of his generation within his own family, seeking solace and a measure of peace from a life lived in the public eye. Norris had made his tranquil home on the island of Kauai, Hawaii, his primary residence. Here, far from Hollywood, he adhered to the ironclad discipline that had been his anchor for over 6 decades. His days began with rigorous physical training, not for a film role, but for life itself. He continued to practice martial arts, sparring with training partners to keep his reflexes sharp and his body strong. This daily ritual was more than just exercise. It was a spiritual practice, a way of maintaining the mental fortitude that had carried him through every other crisis in his life. On March 10, 2026, he celebrated his 86th birthday, and he shared a video on his social media accounts that quickly went viral. The clip showed him sparring on a sun-drenched lawn in Hawaii, his movements still crisp and powerful. He looked happy, healthy, and full of life. The accompanying caption was characteristically upbeat and grateful. "I'm grateful for another year, good health, and the chance to keep doing what I love." He playfully embraced the internet memes about his agelessness, adding a comment about leveling up instead of getting older. The video reassured millions of his fans, painting a picture of a man who was defying age with the same determination he had shown his entire life. This image of vitality is what made the news that followed so utterly shocking. Just 9 days after that cheerful birthday post, on the evening of March 18, 2026, Norris experienced a sudden and severe medical emergency at his Kauai home. He was rushed to a local hospital. The specific nature of the emergency was kept private by the family. A final request for dignity after a lifetime in the spotlight, despite the efforts of medical staff. His condition deteriorated rapidly. On the morning of March 19, 2026, Carlos Ray Chuck Norris passed away peacefully. He was 86 years old. The announcement of his death sent a ripple of disbelief across the globe. To the public, he was an invincible icon, and the suddenness of his passing felt jarringly inconsistent with his larger-than-life persona. His family released a heartfelt statement, confirming his death and framing his legacy to the world. He was a martial artist, actor, and a symbol of strength. The statement read, "To us, he was a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, an incredible brother, and the heart of our family. He lived his life with faith, purpose, and an unwavering commitment to the people he loved." In the wake of his death, tributes poured in from world leaders, military veterans, Hollywood legends, and martial artists. But his true, lasting legacy was not found in the roundhouse kicks or the satirical Chuck Norris facts that made him an internet phenomenon. His real story was that of the shy, impoverished boy from Oklahoma who was handed every reason to fail. He had overcome the shame of an alcoholic father, the searing grief of his brother's death in Vietnam, the public failure of his first marriage, the shock of discovering a secret child, and the agonizing, years-long battle to save his wife's health. He lived a full life, one defined not by an absence of struggle, but by his response to it. The world mourned Chuck Norris because, in a way, everyone needed to believe in a man who could start as an ordinary, vulnerable person and, through sheer force of will, discipline, and faith, become extraordinary. His passing marked the end of an era, leaving behind a lesson far more powerful than any on-screen fight. True strength isn't about being invincible, it's about being relentlessly, stubbornly, and quietly resilient in the face of every imaginable adversity.